Hi everybody, this is ACI Course 1, The Principal Teachings of Buddhism. This is Class 5. We will be talking about samsara and renunciation. At the end of this class, you should understand what samsara is and how it is related to renunciation. You'll know the 2 steps to stop desire for this life, and you'll be able to list the 8 worldly thoughts or things. The next 2 classes will concern primarily with renunciation. What is renunciation, why we need it, how to develop it, and how to know when we've got it. After the preliminary sections of the root texts, we are met with this line: "There is no way to end without pure renunciation, the striving for the pleasant results in the ocean of life." Renunciation is wanting to get out of cyclic life. The root text emphasizes what might be our stumbling block. Sure, everybody wants to avoid unpleasant things like pain and suffering, but can you say that you're done with all the pleasant things that are found as part of samsara? That brings us to the definition of samsara. If renunciation is wanting to escape samsara, then first we really need to understand what it is. Samsara, or korwa in Tibetan, is translated as cyclical life. The technical definition is: samsara is the condition of having to take on, over and over again, a stream of impure parts which were forced on you. Here is Geshe Michael giving us the blessing of the translation from Tibetan. Here we have the Tibetan. Go ahead and repeat after him.
Okay, please say Sache,
Sache,
Nyenengi,
Nyenengi,
Kumbu,
Kumbu,
Gin,
Gin,
Yangme,
Yangme,
Yangdu,
Yangdu,
Lembani,
Lembani,
Korwa,
Korwa,
Yin.
Yin.
Okay. Korwa means what? Cycle of life, circle of life. Sache means impure. Impure. Sak means literally a stain or an impurity. Sache means impure.
Sache is impure?
Yes. Nearland is a very difficult word. It means taken on. Taken on. Which you took on. Nearland ki Pombo. Pombo means heaps. You've heard of the 5 heaps. There are 5 parts of you. There are 5 parts to your being. They range from your physical parts, fingers, head, up to your mental part, your very awareness. These are the 5 parts to a person. They're called heaps because Pundan Kego Rikidu Pombo Kete Kamnam Yin, the first chapter of the Dharmakaya. They're called heaps because they're piles of stuff. You know, like your physical body has got your ears, eyes, nose. That's why they're called heaps. But in Tibetan it sounds as strange as it does in English to call the parts of a person as heaps. Each part is called a heap in the sense of a big bunch of stuff. So like your mental, your awareness heap, the last one, the 5th one, is called a heap because you have 6 different kinds of consciousness.
These skandhas?
Yeah, the Sanskrit is skandha. And it's a strange word in all 3 languages. Gyun means a stream. A stream. A continuum. It's a nice word. Yangne, Yangdu means again and again and again and again.
Over and over again.
Over and over.
Over and over again?
Yeah.
Over and over again.
That's the same thing, right? Over and over. It just means over and over. Again and again. Again and again. Yangne, Yangdu. Lemba means to take. Take. Ni means that's what. Ni means that's what. Korwa Yin. That's what samsara means. That's what samsara is. And it's very, this is the classical explanation of what samsara is. You see it in all the ancient books. This is what they describe as samsara.
So samsara is the condition of having to take on over and over again a stream of impure parts. Basically, it means you're having to be reborn over and over again, which is cyclical life. One note, as Geshe Michael emphasized, the word pongpoi refers to something that is a pile or heap. In Sanskrit, this is the word skandha, and is usually translated as the 5 aggregates. You might be more familiar with it in that form. In addition, the word nirlan implies that you are forced, by karma in this case, to take on the impure parts. So you don't have any choice. You have to be born again and again. As soon as this body, or these 5 heaps, which we call being human, end, you're forced to take on a fresh set of impure parts. So renunciation means not wanting our samsaric dissatisfactory condition. And liberation is going to be born with pure parts. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for liberation from samsara, which is the condition of being born with pure parts that don't age, suffer, and end. What keeps us in samsara? Le Nyung Giching is the Tibetan, which is translated as karma, bad thought, by change. So it means that we're being chained to samsara, or to these 5 heaps, by our karma and our bad thoughts. I put this slide up in particular because I want to emphasize that the word lay, which in this case is being translated as karma, is also used in colloquial Tibetan to represent any kind of work or action that someone's doing. So if you're doing something, basically, it could be, you could say, lay. So, and I think that's why we have the distinction here, because karma technically is defined as any movement of the mind and the actions it motivates. So in here they've separated it out a little bit to emphasize karma, meaning I think more or less the actions, and Jung referring to the bad thoughts, which typically then lead to actions. So those are the things that keep us in samsara. And as you know, or if you've spent any time trying to stop a bad mood or a bad thought or a bad reaction, that we're fairly powerless over these things. So that's why we're chained up to the process of being reborn again and again and again. Now we're going to cover 2 meditations designed to eliminate half our desires. And the half of desires we're focused on are the desires for this life. The other half of desires are for things in future lives, and we're going to cover those in the next class. The first meditation is Delnyor Dunche Nyenke, which means leisure and fortune are difficult to find. In this meditation, you consider the difficulty of finding a life of leisure and fortune. The ancient texts say that the possibility of coming back as a human is the same possibility that a tortoise anywhere in the great oceans of our planet will come up for air, and his head will be inside a round lifesaver that happens to be floating there. So being born as a human is rare and precious. The idea that I won't just come back as a human is hard for me to get, but the possibility that I might come back as a human without the time to study, or in a situation where I can't get enough to eat, is easier for me to imagine. In this meditation, I think about the opportunities that I have. Right now, I have all my basic needs taken care of, which is translated as meaning I have fortune. And if you have the time to be listening to this talk, it means you have leisure. And we are very lucky to have both our needs taken care of and time to actually study Dharma. Since it is harder for me to wrap my mind around future lives, I think about what could happen in this lifetime that could destroy my opportunity to study and meditate. This includes anything from a natural disaster to having to take care of my daughter or parents should they get sick. Indeed, just last week, my back went out, and I couldn't practice for a week. It isn't just that life is precious. It is every moment I am well that is precious. And human health is hard to come by, and so it's very precious. So when I have the health, the leisure to study, I want to take advantage of it. So those are the kind of thought processes that you do around an analytical meditation that is considering the difficulty of finding a life with leisure and fortune. And coupled with that is a second meditation, which is a natural sequel to the first. Chiwa Mittakva means death, gross impermanence, and refers to how impermanent life is, really. In this meditation, we consider that we're going to die for sure, especially if we don't do anything about it. If we don't get out of samsara, we are going to surely die, and when we do die, we cannot control where we end up. And this is the process that goes through my mind exactly. If I don't get out of samsara, or at least have a solid footing on the path with realizations that will prevent a bad rebirth, then at the time of death, anything could happen. In working these two meditations, I personally reflect on my childhood, which for me is a reflection on things that I was powerless over, that I didn't want to have happen, and that were really damaging to me and unpredictable. I mean, I was born into a family that tortured and raped me as a child, and it is a miracle that I'm alive today, and a miracle that I have come in contact with the Dharma. So for me, that speaks to how precious this moment is for me. Other members of my family that had similar experience have not recovered from it, and some have gone on to inflict the same pain on others. So I'm using both of these meditations together, kind of making one meditation. One is I have the time to change my future, and the second is that I don't know how long I have since I could die at any time. I think about what could happen to me if I get distracted by earning money to buy fancy things, or doing work that brings me fame and comfort. If those are my focuses, then what do I get? At any time I could die, and I've wasted the time I've had to make sure that I don't end up with a rebirth that's going to be unpleasant. Everything I do becomes infused with the thought, hey, will this prevent my childhood from happening again? And for me, my childhood has become a synonym with samsara. When I do these meditations, they have the effect of letting me see that I need to make the most out of this life. The process of renunciation is twofold: turning our back on what doesn't ultimately serve us, and then turning to what does serve us. These two meditations are mainly focused on cultivating a mindset to do the latter, to make the most out of this life we have. That brings us to the 8 worldly thoughts. These are sometimes called the 8 worldly things, and since thing and Dharma mean the same thing, lowercase d, then sometimes they're referred to as the 8 worldly dharmas. Now these are the things that keep us in samsara. So we're still studying what samsara is, what keeps us here, what chains us, and so these are the type of thoughts that actually keep us in, and they're pretty straightforward. The first set of 4 starts with being happy when. And what are we happy when? We're happy when we get something. We're happy when we feel good. We're happy when we become well known. And we're happy when someone speaks well of us. So these are the 4 so far, worldly thoughts that keep us in samsara. And it's not so much just, being happy, but what's keeping us in is when we're really attached, that we're so stuck on that feeling of happiness that we'll do bad things to get something. So we might lie in order to get something. We might steal, like let's say eating makes us feel good, so we steal food so we can feel good. We might lie about other people so that we can become well known. So that's what's motivating us is we want to be happy. And we are happy when we become well known, and so this affects what we do. I'm in the process of writing a book proposal, and I'm noticing what's coming up for me because I'm in the section where I'm evaluating the competition. And it's interesting, just automatically of their own accord, these thoughts of wanting the competition to look bad, looking for problems with their work, which is part of the marketing process. But for me, it's like I don't need to speak poorly about them. I can just do, contrast. So it's just, but it's interesting. There's this impulse because I want my book to be accepted that I need to badmouth the competition. And it's definitely a worldly thought that's not based on a wisdom, which lets me know exactly, there's enough room in the universe for 2 good books. The other half of the 8 worldly thoughts is being unhappy so we're unhappy when we don't get something. It's just the converse of the other ones. We're unhappy when we don't feel good. We're unhappy when we aren't well known. And we're unhappy when someone doesn't speak well of us. So these are the thoughts that are keeping us chained into samsara, and the idea is that these are the thoughts that then lead to the actions or the karma, which then creates the cause for cyclical life to continue. That leads us to the end of Class 5. Your homework, well, you've got a few questions to answer. I think you have all the information you need to do that. You also need to memorize the first verse of the 3 principal paths, and that goes, as far as I'm able, I'll explain the essence of all the high teachings of the victors, the path that all the holy sons commend, the entry point for the fortunate seeking freedom. So here we have Jason Kappa, and he's saying, hey, I'm going to explain the essence of all the high teachings of the victors, and victors is another word for enlightened beings or Buddhas. So that's why it's capitalized. So basically, he's saying, I'm going to explain all the high teachings of the enlightened beings. The path that all their holy sons commend. So holy sons, well, who's the son of a Buddha? Those are going to be the Bodhisattvas. So this is the path that all Bodhisattvas take to become Buddhas. And it's the entry point for the fortunate seeking freedom. So if you're not a Bodhisattva yet, then this is definitely, we're the fortunate seeking freedom. Freedom, another code word for escaping samsara, for becoming enlightened. And we are the fortunate that are seeking to become enlightened. So that explains that section of the root text. Your meditation is going to be 15 minutes each day. Count to 10, and then, count your breaths to 10 to get you into a neutral mindset, and then do an analytical meditation on the 8 worldly thoughts. And remember to record the date and time of the meditation on your homework. Our next class will be on karma, and then stopping the desire for future lives. And then we'll finish up with how to know when you've got renunciation. How do you know when you've got it? So thank you so much for your time. We've done a wonderful service. Studying the Dharma is a high practice, and we can dedicate this merit to the benefit of all sentient beings. Bless you.